was challenging you to recycle your understanding of adversity. That's what we really talked about. Because some of the things that we call adversity are not really adversity. We need to change the way we think about adversity, recycling our understanding of it. And so let's review. If you want to go in depth, you can go on YouTube and you can look at it on YouTube and where all the sermons are posted at this time. So 3 ways we can recycle understanding adversity. And we talked about this last week. Let me review very quickly. First, as we talked about, that there's a difference between turbulence and adversity. Some things in your life are unsettling to you, but they're not adversity. They're not stopping you from moving forward. They're not stopping you from living your life. They're just things that bother you. They're unsettling to that you don't necessarily like, but there's nothing about them that are stopping you from doing what God has called you to do. And it turns into adversity when you choose to stop and to respond to it when it really doesn't require your response. Turbulence. Or when you choose to focus on it when it really doesn't require your attention. There's turbulence and then there's adversity. So making sure that you're not confusing turbulence with adversity. Number 2, we talked about this last week, is that you are calling commotion adversity, and it's not adversity. There are some people in your life that are going to gossip, that are going to lie on you, that are going to just talk just to be talking, and that's not necessarily adversity because that's not stopping you from doing what you need to do. Let them talk, let them lie, let them gossip, keep on living your life. It turns into adversity when you try to stop and answer every little lie, every little piece of gossip that someone's saying. Then you make it adversity. Then it's just commotion. Let it be that. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just keep on walking and not respond at all. Not adversity, because it's not stopping you. It's not prolonged. It's just what they're doing in that moment. Okay. Number 3, and this is what we focused on last week, is that recycling our understanding of adversity. Number 3 is convulsions, which is the most difficult to understand. This is what we talk about, the spiritual paradigm, is that there are moments in your life where you think you're experiencing adversity, but really it's a convulsion. And we talked about a convulsion is the temper tantrum that the demonic realm throws when the embodied presence enters into the vicinity. Let me say that again. It is the reaction that the demonic realm gives when it encounters the presence of Christ in you. And that's not adversity. We talked about this last week, but very, very quickly. When you are carrying the Spirit of Christ in you, there will be times when there are convulsions in the environment and people around you. And what it is, that's not adversity. That's what the demonic realm senses, that the Spirit of Christ is in you, and the demonic realm is resisting the Spirit that's in you. That's not adversity. It's not adversity. And those convulsions are the crying out of the demonic realm over its inevitable surrender. We talked about this last week, we noticed that whenever Jesus, the embodied presence, came close to the demon possessed would always convulse. Always. Whenever Jesus came close to the demon possessed would always convulse. And the convulsion was not necessarily connected to the condition. The convulsion was the demonic realm's response to the presence. So what I'm trying to tell you is simply this. If you don't completely get it, go back to the old sermon. But what I'm trying to tell you is this. When the presence of Christ is inside of you, it will unsettle other people around you. That's all I'm trying to say. And sometimes they might not even know why they're unsettled or why they're agitated, because you're in the vicinity and you're carrying the presence of Christ in you. So what we talked about this last week is that when you're carrying the Spirit of Christ in you, you will encounter contrary spirits. There are many different types of spirits in the world. And when you go out into the world, When you are covered in the Spirit of Christ, you will encounter spirits that are resisting the Spirit inside of you. And it has nothing to do about your race, nothing to do about your gender, nothing to do about your sexual identity, nothing to do about where you were brought up from. There are sometimes people don't like you. They don't even know why they don't like you. Because they are under the influence of spirits that are contrary to the Spirit inside of you. And that's nothing against them. I'm talking on a spiritual level now. Some of you will get it, some of you won't. It's okay. But what I'm trying to tell you is that some of you are wrapping your mind and heart and you don't understand, why don't they like me? Why are they doing this to me? Why are they resisting me? Why are they countering everything I say? Why are they being so reluctant? And what I'm saying is sometimes these things are spiritual in nature. And we're trying to analyze them from every other aspect but the spiritual aspect. And sometimes it's the demonic realm resisting the Spirit of Christ in you. You can take it, you can leave it, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm just telling you what I know. I'm just telling you what I know. And this will happen in the context of your family because everyone in your family is not under the Spirit of Christ. This will happen in the context of your workplaces. This will happen in the context when you are just in commercial spaces. Spiritual resistance, convulsions can happen all around us, even in your own household. And I talked about this before. I told you this before. When you got to be careful, when we talk about meditation, there are many different forms of meditation. And some people meditate on things that open up different spirits in them. Some people, if you look at the screen, if you look at television all day, that's a form of meditation. And you are letting spirits in you to influence you. If you are meditating on what somebody's doing on Twitter or their Facebook or whatever like that, that's a form of meditative practice to think about it over and over again. You are allowing spirits to come in and influence you. So what I'm telling you is that some people spend their whole day meditating, concentrating on things that are contrary to the Spirit of Christ. And when the Spirit of Christ, the embodied Spirit of Christ, comes into contact, there will be convulsions. There will be, you can take it, you can leave, you can do whatever you want with it. But I talked about this last week, but I've seen this. I've seen this firsthand. I'm not telling you what I've heard. I'm telling you what I've seen and what I know. I've told you that we've had meditation groups where as soon as the silence starts, I've had people run out of this sanctuary. And not just here. I've had it in other places too. Run out of the sanctuary. Never come back. This is not anything to play around with. You have to understand, if you are a disciple of Christ, the resistance that you are going to encounter sometimes is simply because you are carrying the Spirit of Christ with you. And that will be in every single environment. It could be in every single family, relationships. It can be down the line. But you have to understand this, because if you're not aware of this, you're going to overanalyze the situation, or you're going to misdiagnose the situation. Okay, that's all review. Are you with me? You still with me? Are you still with me online? Let me know, because the quiz is coming. Okay, so there's turbulence, there's commotion, there's convulsions. We need to understand how we deal with adversity, how we understand adversity. So here's a definition. Here we go. Adversity is a continued difficulty, a condition or state of misfortune. And like I said, everything that you don't like is not adversity. Everything that bothers you is not adversity. Everything that unsettles you is not adversity. Adversity, a continued difficulty, a state or condition of misfortune. So, do you know what adversity is now? Continued difficulty, a conditional state of misfortune. That's not turbulence. That's not commotion, and that's not a convulsion. Now, this is where it's going to require multiple layers of understanding. This is the quiz, and then we're going to advance just one step this Sunday. I want you to tell me, it's going to be very, very simple. I want you to tell me, where is the adversity in the passage, in the gospel passage for this morning. I'm going to make it very simple, very simple. So this is Mark 9:20 to 26. Where is that adversity in the passage? Okay, can you see that? Okay, good, because I see it if I look up here. So I want you to read. So the question is the adversity in the red part, the blue part, or the black part? Now we're going to read this together. Now online, I want you to tell me the same thing. The question is the adversity depicted in the red part, the blue part, or the black part? Okay? So online, tell me. In the sanctuary, let's read this together. Go. Blue. Black. Red. Good. Okay. Sanctuary. Sanctuary. Is the adversity depicted in the red, in the blue, or the black? Raise your hand if you think it's blue. Most people online said blue. Raise your hand if you think it's red. Raise your hand if you think it's black. Raise your hand if you don't know. Okay. Thank you for your honesty, Sister Thompson. Okay. It's the blue. It's the blue. It's the blue. Because listen, so he asked his father, how long has this been happening to you? And he said, from child, the adversity is what's been happening all along. Not the convulsion that he experienced when Jesus came, not the convulsion when Jesus was about to cast out spirit. That's not the adversity. The adversity was what's been happening all throughout his life. Okay, you got it. Very good. A+. I saw it online. I think everyone online said blue if I saw correctly. So great job. You understand what adversity is as opposed to a convulsion. Now let's talk about recycling adversity. So we talked about last week recycling our understanding of adversity. Now we're going to talk about what does it mean to recycle adversity. I'm just going to give you one step this Sunday, and then we'll advance on that step over the next 2 Sundays. What does it mean to recycle adversity? So option 1 is the only option we're going to speak on today, is recycling adversity into possibility. Is that all adversity can be recycled into possibility. And that's the only thing I want you to get today. That's the beauty about adversity as a disciple of Christ. A beauty of adversity as a follower and a part of the Lord's creation. Recycle adversity into possibility. So what do I mean by that? Let's go a little bit further. Possibility, which is different from potential. We'll talk about potential next week. Possibility is something that is not present but could be. It's possible. It's not here, but it could be here. I can recycle adversity into possibility. God can recycle adversity into possibility. Your adversity can always produce possibilities for your good and the good of the Lord's creation. That's what I want you to take away. That no matter what you have been dealing with for a prolonged period of time, no matter what condition or state you are struggling with, that adversity can produce possibilities for your good and for the good of others. Adversity can be turned into possibility. So what do we do? What does that mean particularly? Because there's God's part and then there's our part. So the only thing that we have to know for this Sunday is this, in reference to adversity and possibility. Possibility is only limited by imagination. That's the only thing that limits possibility. God is able to do possible things with your adversity, and we are able to do, as children of God, we are able to do things with our adversity, and it's only limited by our imagination. Now let's park right here for a moment. Don't to me the parable. There was this psychologist, and she was a famous psychologist because she served celebrities, and she worked with like the people that were the most known in the entire world. And she was very eclectic in her approach. She didn't believe in offices. She didn't believe in buildings. She did all of her work in this gargantuan mansion, and she only really served the rich and the famous. And when people had issues, they would always go to her. And one day, this burnt out chef came to her. Now, this chef was like the cream of the crop. He said to her, listen, I've served dinners and meals for heads of states, for queens, for kings, for anybody you could ever think of. I have cooked a meal for them, and I'm just burnt out. I don't know what to do. I don't want to cook. I don't even want to see a kitchen anymore. And the psychologist took the chef to her kitchen, which was, of course, state of the art in this beautiful mansion and this beautiful layout. And he said to the chef, I want you to make me a meal that only happy people eat. And the chef said, well, what do you mean? I don't even know what that means. She said, it's not for me to figure out. I want you to imagine that there are certain meals that only happy people eat, and I want you to make that meal right now in this kitchen. And she left the chef to do what he does. And then she was working with this press painter, and the painter said, listen, some people have called me the Picasso of my time. I have sold paintings that are in the 8 figures. And I have all of this money and all of this fame and all of this praise that is always put on me, but I just don't have the energy to do it anymore. I don't know what to paint or how to paint anymore. I've seemed like I've lost my ability to do all of it. And the psychologist took the painter to a space in her house that was a complete blank wall. And she said, I want you to paint a person who was living a vital and joyous life. And the painter said, what does that mean? She said, no, that's not for me. That's for you to figure out. I want you to paint me a person that's living a vital and joyous life. And I want you to paint the scene of this person. And she said, go figure it out. And she left him. And then she met with an architect. And this architect had designed buildings that were in the billions of dollars for every country that you can think of, on every continent. He had been there. They called him in for the most elaborate projects that you can think of. And he was just uninspired. He didn't want to design anymore. And she came to the architect and she said, listen, I want you to design me a building that heals and inspires the soul. What does that mean? I don't know. That's for you to figure out. I want you to imagine that there's a building that as soon as you walk into it, your soul is inspired and your soul is healed simply by the design of the building. And she went back to all of these people, and she went back to the chef, and she said, did you make me the meal? And the chef said, I made the meal. And she said, now eat this meal. And she went back to the painter, and she said, did you make the painting? And he said, he said, I've done the best that I can do. Here's the painting. And she said, let this painting be your mirror. And she went back to the architect and she said, did you design me the building? He said, I've done the best that I can do. And she said, now make and live in this building. What is possible is only limited by your imagination. And she left them with all of this. She said, listen, all of us must live with the creations of our minds and hearts. So we might as well make them beautiful. Every one of us, we must live with the creations of our minds. We're in our minds, we're in our hearts. We'll always think about what we want to do, what we would like to do, our desires, our wants. We have to live with these things. We carry them around with us everywhere we go. So we might as well make them beautiful. We might as well make them beautiful. That's what the imagination is that your what is possible, the possibilities that come out of your adversity are only limited by your imagination. So how do we do that? How do we make our imagination work for us and not against us as people of faith? This is it. Every person is either a captive or a curator of their imagination. Every one of us in the sanctuary, every one of us online, either you are being held hostage by your imaginations. Oh, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen if that will happen. Oh, if that happens, that will really be bad. You've thought of every single possible situation that could go wrong, and now those thoughts are literally holding you captive. Fear, worry, that imagination, allowing imagination to be fueled by that, is now holding you in this prison. Or you can be a curator. What is a curator? This is my layman's term. A curator's job is to bring beautiful items into the museum. It's just that simple. To bring beautiful items into the museum. So we can either be held captive by our fears and our worries, or we can be intentional in every single day. You know what? I want to bring beautiful thoughts and desires and emotions into me. Because if I have those into me, it's going to stimulate my imagination, and it's going to allow me to turn adversity into possibility. Every night, no matter what I do, no matter how much crazy stuff I watch, no matter how much crazy stuff I listen to, and some days it's more and less than others, depending on whether I had a good day or bad day. But I spend every day, and sometimes it's longer than others, in just thinking. And I have a board, and I just want to, because I never want to go to sleep without having a beautiful thought in my mind. So I have a board, and sometimes I'll write down some concepts, or I'll write down some thoughts, or I'll write down some ideas. But I always want to make it a goal that I always want to go to sleep, transition into the unconscious realm with a beautiful thought that I'm holding on to, even if I let it go. And this is why I start my day. I want to start my day in beauty. I want to end my day in beauty. And then I want to return to beauty throughout the course of the day. Because I know if I keep my mind in beautiful places, that helps me in everything that I do, even when I encounter the challenges of life. So the question is simply this. All of us have to live with our minds, with our hearts, with our desires, with our ideas. The question is this. Are you a captive or are you a curator? That's the question. And then the other thing that you have to be careful about, don't allow other people's warped imagination to become a captive to theirs. Don't become captive to other people's bad imaginations. Because sometimes people's fears and anxieties and or their anger or whatever it is, it's so dark and so depressing. It's so whatever that we get sucked into it and we start seeing the world like they see it. And now we become a captive. That's the word. It's even worse to become a captive to somebody else's imagination. Now you're scared because they're scared. You're worried because they're worried. That's even worse. So which one do you want to be? Which one will you strive to be? A curator's job, as I said, is to bring beautiful objects into the museum. And that's your goal every day. That's how you stimulate your imagination for good. Now, this can work both ways, like I mentioned. This can work both ways. So I want to just share with you, I don't know if you saw this article. This is why it's so important to make sure that we cultivate healthy imagination in us, in our young people, anybody that we really have influence in. Now, I was reading this article. Now, there was a grand opening of the Batman movie. And it was a grand opening, and this person had to be a guy because no woman would ever do something like this. This male said, you know what? I'm going to go to this Batman movie. I really want to see this Batman movie. And, there's plenty of things happening in the world that you can spend your imagination on. You can help people in Ukraine. You can go to soup kitchen. There's plenty of things you can do. There's plenty of things you can worry about. Things there. But he said, you know what? I want to go to this Batman movie. And it's not just good enough to go to the movie and see the movie and enjoy the movie with my friends. This person decided, I don't want to go to just the Batman movie. I'm going to go to the pet store and buy a bat. Had to be a man. Had to be a man. That wasn't it. I got my ticket. I go to the pet store. I buy a bat. Then I buy a cage small enough for the bat to fit into a bag, small enough to put into the bag so I can conceal the bag and go into the movie theater and sit in the movie theater with the bat. That wasn't it. His imagination didn't stop there. He said, I wonder what would happen if we're watching this Batman movie and I actually release the bat while the Batman movie is going on. So he releases the bat. And they have to call animal control while people are trying to watch the movies to catch this bat. This is an example of imagination gone wrong. Gone terribly, terribly wrong. And this is why I say this. It's because we all have the capability to go to dark places. All of us. And that's why as Christians, we should never judge anybody no matter what they do, because we have the capacity to go to dark places. All of us can go there. So the question is, where are you going to stay on the right side of your imagination? Are you going to stay on the right side? There's this beautiful quote that I came across, Or ole min ha-mizrah. And it simply means light rises from the east. Light rises from the east. Always stay on the east part of your mind. On the east part of your imagination. Always stay on the part of your imagination which gives life. If you begin thinking about ruminating, concentrating on something that's not going to lead you into anything that's constructive or life-giving, move to the other side of your imagination. Always live on the east of your imagination, on the east side of your imagination. Let me tell you, I'm done. I just want to just end with, I want to tell you about a friend, a family friend that I had growing up, and they were very close to us. Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson was very close to me and my family. And Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson, they lived in a very basic, very somewhat downtrodden neighborhood and downtrodden place. And they were business people, and they owned a dry cleaner. And they didn't just own a dry cleaner, but they started a chain of dry cleaners. And they had a chain of dry cleaners and became so successful that they actually were able to move out of their depressed neighborhood into a very, very expensive and rich neighborhood. And Mr. and Mrs. Jeffersons, every time I used to see them, they always used to sing this song, "I'm moving on up." Some of y'all got that, some of y'all didn't. Ah! Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson used to always sing this, "I'm moving on up to the east side, to a deluxe apartment." I love Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson. They were a very seminal part of my life. Some of you all still haven't got this. That's okay, that's okay. Somebody will explain it to you. The east side, the east side, the east side, the east side of your imagination. That's where you want to go. That might not be where you start every day. But you want to end every day on the east side of your imagination, because listen, light always rises from the east. Light always rises from the east. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you have been through, no matter what state or condition you may be facing, let me tell you, God can transform your adversity into a possibility. And not just God. As a disciple of Christ, you have the power to transform your adversity into possibility. And it starts with your imagination. Cultivating that, bringing beautiful things into that each and every day. And don't take my word for it. Try it and see if it's not true for you.